Well, guys, welcome to What's Not Sports. I'm really excited today. I've got a special guest on, Charlie Verco. Welcome.
Thanks, Wilbur. Stoked to be on.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you on. Got a lot to talk about. You've had an incredible season already so far. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I've been absolutely stoked with my season. I've actually ticked off a lot of goals that not only I wanted to achieve, but actually some that I hadn't even dreamed of achieving. So pretty grateful for how I've been racing. Obviously it's surf sport, so it's still coming with some ups and downs, but overall I've had a season that basically has made it so that if any other results I get in irons will be a cherry on top. I'm pretty pleased with what I've done.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I want to jump in today with some quick rapid fire questions to break the ice. They're not too crazy, so let's jump straight right into them if you're ready.
Go for it.
So let's start off with, where is your favourite beach to race at?
North Bondi, home beach,
Yeah. If you weren't a clubby, what would you be?
triathlete.
What's your favourite pump-up song?
Dear Maria, count me in.
Oh, nice. What's your favourite movie?
Surf's up.
What's your favourite hobby outside of surf sports?
Surfing, pretty predictable.
Just
that
on
one.
the ocean?
Yeah, anytime I
Yeah.
can be in the water. The new one actually I've been getting into a bit now is foiling as well. Been trying to.
Yeah, we got quite a few up here at Noosa that love foiling, so it's going off.
Oh, it's a perfect spot up there. It's tricky because during the week I'm living in the northern beaches with Jackson and Maddie, and then on the weekends I try and go home and see my family if I'm not racing back in Bondi, where you're not allowed to foil. So,
Right.
my progress has been slow because of that.
You might have to come up to Noosa for a weekend and give it a go.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Um,
Any excuse.
Yeah. Any weird or unique skills that you have?
Yeah, I can solve a Rubik's Cube quite quickly. Went through that phase through school.
How quickly?
At my best, I think I did like 28 seconds. But
Jeez.
I also was like, I could consistently do it in under a minute.
Oh, wow.
When I first got a wild card into the series, I think it was in 2020, they called me up like 3 days beforehand, and normally you have when you go through the series, you have a whole lot of time to fill out some information about yourself and get it up on the website, and I had like a day to get it all in, and one of them was what's a fun fact about yourself, and I was scrolling through other athletes' fun facts to get ideas, and Jackson Borg, who I'm now living with, fun fact was that he can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 2 minutes or something, and so I made mine that I could solve it faster than Jackson Borg. We've had races.
Wow. And who wins, you?
I've got him.
Yeah, nice. And last question, do you have any superstitions before racing?
Not exactly a superstition. I have pissed off a few officials because I always love to, after the briefing, just get wet and jump in the water, especially before a board race. Try and do a good start so that I'm not completely cold before this gun goes off.
Yeah, nice. You killed those questions. You were rapid fire. That was good.
Yeah, nothing controversial came out. That's good.
No. Just keeping it simple. Wow. Well, let's jump in now that we've broken the ice a little bit, and let's hear more about you, Charlie. Let's talk about you from a nipper. From what I know, you started at age 5 at North Bondi.
Yeah, absolutely. Under 6 green caps, North Bondi.
Yeah, so let's start there. Tell me what got you into surf sports.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you're that age, you don't have much agency on your own. I think everyone got into nippers because their parents wanted them to learn surf skills and be safe around the ocean. And also just, I guess, build a friendship network and community around the beach, because it's such a great lifestyle to have.
Yeah.
That being said, I was very untalented as a nipper. I loved going down to see my mates, but I was pretty scared of any surf. If the surf got bigger than a foot, I used to just stick to beach events, and that was something that was quite frustrating for me. Even though all we would do is go down to nippers once a week, I'd get quite nervous going, I really want to be in the water, but what if I'm too scared to go out in the surf? And that actually hung around for a really long time. Coming into about, I think it was the last year of foam boards was when I first got introduced to like training and competition. I didn't do it from the first year that you could do comps because I was doing a lot of other sports when I was a kid. I was like AFL, cricket, tennis, surfing whenever I could, plus all school sports and stuff, and a bit of running around all that. And when I finally got to training, I was like, yeah, this is what I love. I could see myself actually getting better if I put in work. Even though I was still at the back of everyone in my age group, I was getting closer. But it was that same thing. I'd be at school checking the surf cam going, oh, it's 2.5 foot. Well, it might be a bit big for me. And again, it was a really tough thing to work through because had this internal battle between really wanting to be out there with my mates and training, pushing hard, but just not being able to get over that fear. And the only thing that really got me through that was time and continually pushing myself. I was lucky that I had a lot of people that were supportive of it. Jimmy Walker was my board coach back then. And yeah, he was very supportive of it. He wouldn't force me to do anything that I didn't want to do, but he'd also keep pushing me. He wouldn't let me just sit on the beach. He'd be like, okay, go out as far as you feel comfortable going out, and then just turn around. And obviously when I was a kid, that was pretty embarrassing when my mates just kept paddling out through the surf and I'd just turn around and go back in. But it gave me the resources to I guess, build that confidence in the surf, even if I was frightened. And then just with getting older, that faded away. I started to get more joy out of pushing myself, and I think it's almost to the credit of being so scared of waves that I think racing and surf is now one of my strengths, because it meant that no matter what, I was trying to stay away from where the wave is breaking. And I was also just, I guess, skillful, because I guess if you're not going out the back, you're spending more time in the break zone. So yeah, once I got into older age groups, I continued to see myself improve. I started becoming the best in the age group at my club when I was about on the 14s on the board. I've always been a pretty average swimmer, but my board paddling kept me involved and trying to compete. And then yeah, started to get over my fear of waves. And then in age groups, in the later stages of age groups, I think under 17, second year under 17s, I won my first ever state medal individually, which was in the board race. I think Zach Morris actually won that race. It's funny, you're racing against the same people that you were racing when you were 14 years old. And that was a funny one because I'd started to get confidence that I could go well in racing. And it was me and my mate Hamish from my club in the board final at state, and we were at position 1 and position 16, wherever it was, either ends of the line. And there's a video, we're running in at Swansea, and there was a little bit of a bank, and we were all running in the line, and then just 2 people at the exact same time just dropped down to the ground because we both stepped in potholes, and it was myself and Hamish at either end of the line. And that just made me furious, because I was like, this is my first time I felt like I had a chance to actually perform well in a race. And I just went straight to the inside, had a good run around the cans, and managed to get onto the wave for third. And that was the first time I went, well, I'm all of a sudden competitive in these races. Even if I had a setback, I can still perform well. It was still with North Bondi through all this time, but when I was obviously on longboards, we weren't training with Jimmy on the shortboards anymore. I was doing most of my iron program with Scotty Thompson, and a lot of my ski work was with Jimmy. And I think around that time, having Scotty as a coach just taught me that the harder you work, the better you're going to go. And that was really valuable mentality to have while I was growing up, because it taught me discipline in my training and taught me to be able to push myself, which is something that's essential when you're doing a race. If you're afraid to push yourself in a race, you're never going to be able to perform well. And yeah, I loved working under Scotty as well, because he was very helpful in having meetings with me, checking how I was going, and allowing me to alter the program in ways that I was curious about experimenting. So if I was going, look, I feel like I'm getting a little bit overworked in this session, and I'm rocking up to Wednesday swimming a little bit too tired, he'd go, okay, well, we can pull the volume of the intensity of that session down, and maybe just chuck a little bit more volume and skill work in. And yeah, Scotty was an excellent coach in the sense that the more you gave to him, the more he gave back to you. If you were someone that just wanted to come down and have a friendly paddle with your mates and not really do the session properly, he'd just leave you alone, let you do your own thing. But if, for example, me, I used to get called the Zero. I'd come down and be competitive and focus every session and not really be that chatty once the session started. But I was always very goal-oriented, and I'd meet with him often, and he'd always have time for me, always be keen to work with me, and always be checking in. And that's what led to me getting my first state wins in under 19. Actually, second year under 19s. Just after I finished school, I managed to win the 19s board and iron, which was just, again, something I didn't think I'd be able to do. I knew I could have a good board paddle on my day, and I was pretty consistent in irons that year. But it was around that COVID-y time where we weren't doing as much racing, and under 19s you don't do much under 19 isolated racing anyway. So I hadn't competed against the full field until state, and coming out it was Zach Morris, Finn Askew, and Kai Taylor. Like, it was all those boys that are now in the series were racing around together. It was a pretty formidable race, and I remember just coming out of that going, wow, like I can compete with these guys on my best day. So
wow.
Yeah, a whole lot of confidence came out of that as well.
Did that help you realise that you could be an Ironman, or was that a turning point for you?
It was definitely a motivator that I should keep pursuing the sport. With surf lifesaving, it's always a challenging one because we all do the sport because we love it. But that being said, it's not many of us that are really making an income out of it. I say us, I'm not making a positive income out of it. Any prizes I get is going into funding, rocking up to races essentially.
Yeah.
But so you kind of have to make a decision about if you're going to commit to it fully, or if you're going to do it as more of a passion and try and figure out a career or something outside of that. And that gave me the confidence to go, like, look, if I give this a real crack, I could get somewhere.
Yeah, wow.
And yeah, I'm glad I did. So yeah, any other things? I'm trying to think of other things during Nippers. One other thing that was challenging during Nippers, I think by the time I was in Open, I went to 1 Aussies in total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it was first year 19s. And it was just from pure bad luck and coincidence. Like, there was, in under 14s, 2 weeks out before that Aussies, I was just walking at school with my mate and chatting shit, as you do with the boys, and said something that was like offensive but not really offensive, and just as a retaliation and a joke, my mate just tripped me over and I landed funny on my wrist, broke my wrist, couldn't race Aussies.
God.
Whenever I'm acting up to that mate, he still threatens to come over and break my wrist before Aussies. And it was stupid stuff like that. I had we had a Cyclone Debbie came through that year, and then I had some school things on multiple years, HSC and some stuff earlier that meant that I couldn't the school just didn't let me go. Then we had COVID, all that stuff. So I never really had many Aussies experiences, and that also kept me it was really frustrating because I'd always work towards this goal and never get to have a crack at it. But it also kept me coming back every year going, I really want to get to race at Aussies. I've heard such an amazing experience. So yeah, getting to have done maybe 5 or 6 or plus Aussies now, I love it more and more every year, and I'm definitely not sick of it.
Yeah, awesome. So you said under 19s when you won that state titles, was that just before COVID hit?
Yeah, COVID
and
knocked
then
out.
COVID would have took out Aussies that season, and then now you're in Opens. How'd you go with that shift from under 19s to Opens during that COVID phase?
Yeah, I was pretty gutted that Aussies got cancelled because it was just, once again, another year that I didn't get to race Aussies. But the other thing was, I was actually undefeated in irons that year, in under 19s. Like, we'd done a whole lot of open racing where it's just, you can't really tell. But in outright iron racing, outright under 19 racing, I hadn't been beaten in an iron that year. So I was really confident going into Aussies, which may have been false confidence. There's a lot of Queenslanders that we weren't really getting to verse during that time, but I was excited to see how I could go, and COVID really took away that opportunity. And again, it's that last opportunity to do that in an age group where you're separated from all of the best people in the sport, essentially. That's what Opens is. It's just anyone who wants to have a crack will come and have a crack. And you see that there's anyone from 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds who've got the next, the golden ticket, all the way up to 35-year-old Ali Day that can come and win races and be very hard to beat in any old day. So that was really challenging. But one thing that I was fortunate about is Scotty Thompson really had the attitude of, when I'm an age grouper, just do as many races as you can. So this was back before they had the rule where you couldn't do all three, but we'd go to branch carnival and Scotty would be like, yeah, you're doing every race for 17s, 19s and opens today. And I'd come out and do like 20 or 25 races by the time you have all the teams. And I'd be absolutely shattered. And I might have also just been a little bit too tired to race effectively in all of those races. But what I learnt was, one, how to navigate a race when you're not at your best. So how to use people in a race as opposed to just go out and try and paddle as hard as you can. And I also just got exposure to open racing from a really young age group. So that evolved as I got older. It started off with just my number one goal when I was in an open race was to make one bounce off of this ball wash at the start. And then all of a sudden that got to maybe I want to try and be on the second wave when I come in. And then all of a sudden under 19s in board races, I was like, well, I want to be making these finals and I want to be trying to have a crack. So when I went into opens as my real age group, it was not as though it was stepping up to anything. It was more just kind of losing that option where I could have a backup race if I wasn't happy with how I went in opens.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
opens is the real deal, so
yeah,
made it used to it.
And now, was it your first season of opens that you got the call up, a wild card call up to go race in the series?
Yeah, it was. I'm so bad with years; I get them all mixed up. But it was in my first year of opens that I got called up to the series. I'm pretty sure it was 2020. So it might have been the end of my under 19 year when I made my first open iron final at a major event. It was the Summer of Surf Shannon Eckstein at that time, and
yes,
I was stoked to make the final. I got my name on my cosy, on my jammers for the first time, and was just keen to have a race. And it was, I'm sure people remember, but huge surf, the biggest I've raced in by a significant margin. And I'd only really just started to kind of move on from that fear of waves, but I was still not a brave person in surf. And I remember they called us down to the marshalling before the iron finals, because it was one of those weekends where it just kept building throughout the day, all the way to the finals package, and we had the girls and the guys all together. And they said, look, the conditions are really challenging. We're right on the edge of calling it off, which is a big deal because those summer surfs and now World Ocean Series, they never call it off. They try and run it in any surf they can. But they said, we're going to leave it up to you guys. So they asked the girls first, what do you want to do? Do you want to race? And every single girl was like, yeah, let's race. And all the boys just went, whoa. Like, we were all half, like going, oh, we'll see what everyone else says. It was pretty freaky. And all the girls were so keen on doing racing, so we just got our fate sealed for us. And I was lucky enough to be able to lead around for most of the second half of that race and come away with a third in my first ever open iron final.
Wow.
And that was a really cool experience, but that was also what allowed Shannon Eckstein actually saw that race and saw me doing that, and he was the one who put my name forward for the wild card when I think it was Tannen had an injury and couldn't complete the last round of the series. And so it was a pretty funny, pretty cool full circle moment in the story, how this kid who was so scared of surf that all of a sudden had his breakout result in huge surf, and that led to me having my first opportunity to race in the professional series alongside some pretty incredible men.
Wow, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in that same season at Aussies, you were part of the North Bondi team that took out the Open Taplin?
Yes, that was that was a really special season. That Taplin's still a result I hold as one of my equal highest, best experiences in the sport. We spend most of our time training with a squad, but you kind of train as an individual athlete a lot of the time. However, when we pulled together at the start of that season and realised we had a team that was really good, that season itself became about that Taplin. It wasn't just that one day. We were all rocking up to training going, look, we feel like crap today, but we're going to put our heart out on the line for this Taplin team. We all held each other accountable. It was Jared Port and Ned Whelan doing the swim. Jared Port's like the former Olympian 10K open water that almost won by leading out the 10K on his own for 95% of the race. And he had almost retired from swimming, but had just moved to North Bondi and cared equally about this dream of winning a Taplin with us. And so what he used to do is he'd just go out on his lunch breaks from work and swim for an hour. And when you have the background in the pool like he does, that's all you need to get that speed back and be able to perform for a 4-minute race. Ned Whelan has done some incredible stuff in endurance swimming. He's was the youngest Australian male to swim the English Channel. He's ticked off a lot. I don't know the details about all the events, but he's done lots of mammoth swims. And he put a lot of work in trying to get his speed up to perform again in a quite a short race. And then the ski paddlers we had Jackson Collins and Noah Havard. Noah Havard I went through age groups with, and we'd actually won a Taplin together in under 17s in the one Aussies I did go to. It was me, Noah, and that mate Hamish that I talked about running into the water for that state board race when I was under 17. So we'd all gone around together, and you know what incredible ski paddlers they've turned out to be.
Yeah.
And both Olympic silver medalists by 1 millimetre in the last Olympics. Yeah. And then it was myself and Sam Braun on the board, and Sam Braun's been one of my closest mates. We went to school together. He was near Olympic school, so we'd carpool the training every arvo. He's one of those mates where he's been one of my closest for a long time, and is one of the people that can most annoy me in the whole world. And that was very prevalent at training because him and I shared very different attitudes on how to train, and I'd get frustrated that he might be bludgeoning on the way out, but so he could go max on the way in. And I'd be like, why won't you come and race me on the way out, and then we can race on the way in? But he had a method that worked for him, and he was paddling incredibly well. Yeah. And so we rocked up for that Taplin on that day. I'd had a bit of a disappointing Aussies, and I wanted to make that board final, and the irons. I thought I was in for a crack. I was in a good spot during the heats and just kind of made a few mistakes and didn't make it. But it meant that I was fresh on that finals day. And we rocked up, we were all fired up. I'd had some psych-up talks from Jimmy before Taplins that is a whole separate story. Sometimes he's excellent at them, sometimes he misreads you, but this time he fired us all up excellently, and we all just were thinking about the club during that whole race. It was never about us. We were just about executing our own legs so that we can give the club the best chance. And for that race, Sam is a pretty nonchalant person, and I've never seen him look so scared. Like, he was like, don't talk to me, kind of nervous, and shaking on his board, which clearly gave him enough adrenaline to paddle well. So the order that day was. Do you want me to go into more details about Taplin?
Yeah, go for it.
The order that day was swim, board, ski. And basically in our team, we're competing against the huge clubs who have no weak legs, and the biggest area of weakness for us was probably the swim, because whilst our swimmers are incredible, they're not the current Olympic standard swimmers that we have in Northcliffe or Alex or stuff like that. And so their job was just to be close enough, essentially. They were also, Ned and Jared are great swimmers, but they're also both pretty terrible runners. So I think Jared went off first and had a brilliant swim, probably popped up about 6th to 10th, which in that field was an unbelievable achievement. But there was a huge run transition. And so for those guys, it was almost more about the run than it was the swim. And I'm pretty sure we all lost our voice screaming at both Ned and Jared during those run transitions. And we've all seen the pool swimmers, like a lot of the swimmers in the Taplin teams run, and sometimes it's pretty entertaining. And if you chucked them against a Corey Fletcher, it might not have been that impressive, but watching those guys run those transitions, they couldn't have done it any faster if they were fresh, I don't reckon. They just emptied the tank during those transitions just to get that 1 centimetre further. So I think I got tagged in about 6th or 8th at that point. And there was a breakaway pack of Newport, my current club now, Newport and Northcliffe, I'm fairly sure. And then there was another group of people after that. There was like Newport B and I think Northcliffe B and a couple other clubs. And I went in just behind that. I think it was a lure as well, because Chris King, another board paddler I used to race against growing up. And I went in just behind that pack and just had the goal of getting to their tail off the start, which I did. And then I got to rest on them out to sea, tried to go up the inside around the cans, had a clean run around the cans. And at the time I was still a pretty small guy, quite light, and there was a little gentle breeze coming in. And when I did my warm-up, I went out and caught a couple runners and went, look, if you get the right runner, you can actually chase this to the beach if you surf it well. And I was chasing people like Matt Poole and Max Brooks and some of those bigger guys who were incredible board paddlers, but I had the benefit of being a little bit lighter, and I just got on a bump and managed to work it past all those guys, and it turned into a wave, and I got all the way to the beach and managed to catch that front pack. So all of a sudden we're in the race in 3 with the top dogs. And I ran around and tagged Sam Braun, and he executed a race very bravely, in my opinion, because I thought at that point our strategy was just hang on with the pack and trust that our ski paddlers could get it done. And Sam went for it off the beach, got on some wash with Bevy, who's got the best board results out of anyone over the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, I guess. And I was like, Sam, if you just stick with Bevy, like, I reckon we've got this race. And around the last can, Sam just decided to go out on his own and go for it on the way in. And he got this huge runner and got a lead on the whole field. I'm like, this is it, we've got it. And then all of a sudden Bevy did what he does every board race and just worked 2 runners like no one else could, and got past him. I'm like, oh no, we're out of this again. And then Sam just got down a wave, so it was Northcliffe and North Bondi head to head going into the ski legs. And Sam's an incredible runner, ran around faster than Bevy. No, sorry, Sam's an incredible runner. And so we're like, yeah, Sam's going to tag first here, and completely stuffed his get up and ended up having to tag second after a pretty shocking transition because he made a little mistake. The only mistake of the entire race. And then tagged Noah Havard, who at the time was still a pretty young guy, first year opens, and had an incredible paddle against some giants on the skis, and came in same wave again on first. And then tagged Jackson Collins, who had just won his first Australian ski title, I think.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's where there's that footage of Jimmy jumping up and down on the beach, and yeah, Jackson did another paddle of his life and came in, and we got first. And that's where I just remember the jumping up and down, like we all sprinted up and jumped the fences that I have set up at Aussies, nearly injuring ourselves to go and tackle Jackson and celebrate. And then the next thing was just a whole flood of red of all the community of North Bondi that knew how much it meant to us and how much it meant to the club to win the first ever Taplin for our club. And after that was just weeks of celebrating, I guess. Yeah.
Wow, that's just incredible. And what was it like when you got home to like North Bondi? Were you guys like the heroes? What was it like?
Yeah, it was a little bit like that, actually. North Bondi's a surf club that's got so much history, and there's so many old boys that you grow up knowing it just as a nipper that kind of follow along your journey. And these old boys, their whole life is the club. It's the most important things for them, apart from outside their family, basically. And seeing what it meant to them, it was you saw people speaking to you about how happy they were for the club, and it was beyond what they could express in words. They'd like stutter, and like a couple of people would get a bit emotional. And
wow.
We watched the video of that Taplin so many times, and I haven't gotten sick of it. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
We had a couple of the Masters competitors that are around my dad's age that bet us if we won the state Taplin that he'd put $1,000 on the bar tab for everyone. And we won the state Taplin, and he was like, no, I didn't say that. And everyone was like bagging him out because he just went against his word. And so he went, look, if you win the Aussie Taplin, I'll put 10 grand on a bar tab. And we won, and he did.
Wow.
He put 10 grand on a bar tab. So we had this huge party a couple of weeks later just to celebrate the Taplin.
Jeez.
And that was a pretty wild night, because once he'd put money down, a whole lot of other people put money down, and the whole club rocked up, and we worked our way through it. And yeah, there was just every time someone brings it up, I have a lot of pride in that event, about how we were able to rally together as a team. we were training with those guys all the time. Like
Yeah.
whilst we might not have been in the same pool as the swimmers, they'd come down and do a surf session alongside our iron session. So we'd do races against them, and then all the flat water ski paddlers we'd go and do with the ski paddlers. So we were all seeing each other work and how much effort was going in the background, just with the goal of this tackling in mind. And it was pretty special to see it pay off.
Yeah, that's just insane. Now, let's talk a little bit more about your open journey after that. I guess you had a few years where you were just on the cusp of, well, let's say making everything. You're on the cusp of making the series quite a few times, and then you were there in all, like, Summer of Surf, World Ocean Series at the time, all of those events. And then you moved to Newport, and then now you've had an insane breakout season. You had that season in 2024 where you're on the podium at Aussies in the Iron final. Just, can you talk that journey now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of got into opens right as the sport was on the rise again. We started getting some good sponsors. Strong Partners has been incredibly generous to our sport and has basically lifted it up from the brink of extinction, essentially. And what that meant is we had lots of opportunities of racing, because I think I might have done 6 trials now, and I definitely did 5 trials and never got through. And each year felt like I'd just been more and more unfortunate. Like maybe the first couple I probably didn't deserve to be in the field. I probably wasn't in that top few. But then definitely the last 3 I'd come out of the weekend going, like, I'm good enough to be in that series. A lot of disappointment. The first 2 of those years, I still kind of came out with a lesson. It might have been a mistake or something like that. But then last year's trial was one of the one of the toughest days I've had in racing, because I'd been performing incredibly well. I was very dominant the day before. I think I went into the second day ranked in the top 3, and I just got a little bit crook, and it was kind of a sickness where it didn't. If I sat around doing nothing, I couldn't really feel much. I just felt a little bit lethargic. But any time I tried to put any work in, or tried to raise my heart rate, my whole body just fell flat, and I went weak and a bit tingly and dizzy. And so on the day of racing, I was sitting there going, like, is this just a mental thing? Have I just had a breakdown? Like, what's going on? Have I cracked under the pressure? Because every time I did a start, I'd be up the front, I'd nail my start, and then I'd do about 20 strokes and just the whole field would go past me. And I didn't even get close to qualifying on the second day, and just came away from that time going, like, what's even the lesson here? Like, I did everything right. I'd done the work. I was good enough. It wasn't even bad luck in surf. Like, you can just kind of deal with that. We chose this sport. If that happens, it happens. It was just something from the universe stopped me from getting through.
Yeah.
Made me doubt, like, whether I was actually good enough and what I was doing with my time. And that was a tough one to come away from. But that's where the World Ocean Series and Summer of Surf have been such a great opportunity, because across 5 missings of the trials, if that was a few years prior, if you miss the trials, there's basically no real professional racing in the sport until State or Aussies, because the top guys would all have the series. You'd have a couple local carnivals, but the series guys wouldn't go to them because they had their main focus. So you could go and do some races, but you wouldn't get to gauge yourself against the best in the sport and see how you were going against them. And I actually was having a discussion with Trent Goulding and my dad the other night about how, like, I really owe it to the World Ocean Series and Summer of Surf for me even being in the sport still, when I think about it. Because if I had 5 years of getting close and not making it through, and having to spend the whole season not really getting to race against the top guys, I probably would have had to pull back. I still would have done the sport. I still would have loved it, but I probably would have gone and searched for some more full-time work, something else to put a lot of my time and effort into that might have given me a little bit more reward at the time. But luckily I had that opportunity to rock up 5 or 6 times a year and race the guys in the series and go, hey, like, I'm beating them. Like, I'm good enough to be there.
Yeah.
That was a really important part.
And then come along to this season, well, even last season you had some great results, but this season got through at the trials, and then you've had an amazing Iron Series. You've finished second overall. You've had a great World Ocean Series. Like at the Friday at the Sunset 10,000, you finished third. Like some incredible results. How good has that felt to finally go? You're here now. You're at the top. How good's that?
Yeah, it's been a pretty cool feeling. Like it's something you can't become complacent in, because there's one of the other things about the sport that I've noticed in the last 5 or 6 years is all of those top guys, not many of them have dropped off, and all of the younger guys have just come up and raised the level each year. So it's gone from there being like 10 people that like are at the top level trying to win the series, all really good, and then maybe 20 people below that, all that kind of wanted to be in the series, thought they should be in the series. So now there's like 50 guys at least, probably 60 guys that can rock up on any carnival, and you'd be like, yeah, if they made the final, you get it. And like even Aussies, like probably 50 guys, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. They're in the final. They're fast. Maybe there was a little bit of an upset, but everyone's so close and everyone's performing so well that it's just getting harder and harder to be at the top of the sport. So I'm very grateful for the results I've had. I've had so many cool results over the years in the world. What was the Summer of Surf and now the World Ocean Series. Most of them in iron, a couple in board, some pretty cool team results. And
Yeah.
I felt like I'd achieved what I wanted to in there. Like I still want to try and win a 10,000, which just slipped away from me on the weekend, but I was still stoked with the third. And then I had the Aussies at Maroochydore a couple of years ago, where the year before I wanted to win the board and had just made a mistake in the final and was out of it. It was a Perth flat water. If you make one mistake, the race is over. And in Maroochydore, I basically led out around the whole board with Bevy. It was me and Bevy leading the whole way. And I'd been reading the surf all day, and there was one zone where the waves would peak up and break a little bit further out. Bevy and I nailed our line straight onto that, and all of a sudden, 5 guys got a wave in the rip past us, and I ended up 6th. I think Bevy DNF'd. And Noah Stein was in 3rd. I think he fell off the wave that I was on, got like 10th or 11th. And I was pretty gutted after that. But I'd made the board final I'd made the iron final, and the board final was the one where I was like, yeah, I want to win this. The iron final, I was stoked to be in that final and just had this whatever happens, happens attitude. And right before the board final, a massive front of wind came through, the water got a bit messy, the swell jumped up a bit. And I was just in that attitude of, this is going to be fun. Like, you can't really control what happens in this race. You just got to make the most of every opportunity. And we all jumped in the skis. There was a really long hole before then, trying to get a clean start. And it was myself and Jackson Borg on the very southern end of the line, the right-hand side, and then Charlie Brooks more towards the left of the line. And the gun goes, we all punch a few waves. It was pretty heavy on the bank. And there was this one wave that we all punched where myself, Jackson and Charlie just punched at the best. And we got out in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 3 guys from Newport, all paddling Boss and Bennett. There's this really cool photo that we were all leading into that first cam, which, yeah, it's one of my favourite photos I've got from me racing. And I managed to lead around I think Jackson overtook me on the ski, but I overtook him on the board, came in first off the board, went to the swim last, and got to have that feeling of leading around an Aussies, which is the top of the sport.
Yeah.
And had a pretty shocking swim, actually, but managed to get a wave and hang on in a run at the beach against Jackson to get 3rd. And that was, again, one of those results that I just... You'd write it down when Scotty would say to write down a more ambitious goal, but I didn't really believe that that would ever happen, really, because, yeah, I had some breakout results where fortune went my way a lot, but you never think that's going to happen at Aussies, because there's only one Aussies, and you just think, okay, that's the one where the best guy's going to win. And it just shows the nature of sport. There's a lot of different best guys. It just depends on the conditions on the day. So I felt like I'd achieved what I wanted to in the World Ocean Series, achieved what I wanted to at Aussies, but I still just couldn't make a series. And it just felt like this gap. And when that's labelled as the professional series, I'd had all these results, but I never really felt like a professional Ironman because I hadn't qualified through the toughest weekend of racing, which is the trial. So coming into this year, it was another year where I was really confident. The format suited me, especially on the Sunday with that run at the start into an enduro. And it was one of the more painful races I've ever done, that first enduro on the Sunday. And it was myself, some of my best mates actually all battling it out at the front of this race. It was Odin, Noah Steiner, Sean Riley, Jackson Borg, a few other people drifted in and out. I think Dan Collins was up there for a little while. And I managed to qualify through. Jackson qualified through comfortably. He's been one of the more consistent Ironmen in the sport over the last 10 years. He's just always there. But then it was myself, Noah Steiner, Odin, and I think Sean. They all qualified that day, but I'm not sure if they qualified that first race. But it was a group of some of my closest mates in sport all managed to qualify through. It was my first time qualifying through the trial. It was Noah Steiner's first time qualifying through the trial. One of the only people that I'd say is had spent more time missing out on qualifying for the series that deserved to be there than I had. So there was just so much emotion across that line. There's some photos of like when I come across the line, and Jackson is absolutely rooted from this race. But once he finishes, instantly turns around because it was swim last. He was worried about me. Make sure that I stuck there and qualified through. And I'm basically crying in pain, and we give each other a big hug. There's some amazing photos of Noah Steiner because, yeah, he's had some gutting trial results. It's another example of once you get through, like anything can happen. He's been one of the more dominant races in the races you get to do in the series. And that really ticked off that feeling of like, yeah, I've done it. I'm getting my chance at the series. I'm a well-rounded iron person. And now I can just go give it a crack without having to worry about making through any heats.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, cool. And what was the atmosphere like in the series of being, well, I guess you had a little bit of a taste for it when you had that wild card spot, but what was like the atmosphere like?
Yeah, that taste for it in the wild card was weird because I got called up so late. I got called up on a Wednesday afternoon and had to race on the Friday in Kingscliff. So it went by so quickly. It didn't feel how it felt to qualify, put it that way. I was like, yep, sweet, I get to race. I was really disappointed with how I raced over those couple of days. Lots of mistakes. I'm pretty confident in my board paddling, and there was a specialist format where I led out the board and then got stuck wide around the can, missed all the waves and came in like 16th. I was going, that just didn't reflect how I felt I was racing. I got a 10th in the Enduro, which I was stoked with. Yeah. But again, I came out of that going, wow, that was really cool racing, but I didn't get the time to appreciate just being there. Despite how hard I tried, it was still just came down to I was there for the racing bit instead of the around it where you're like, yes, I'm in the series. So you qualify through the trial, and provided you make it through the rounds, you at least get like 2 or 3 months before first elimination round where you're like, I'm a series athlete, I'm a professional Ironman. This is what I watched when I was a kid and had the dreams written down on a piece of paper, and one day I want to try and be a professional Ironman. So that's the really cool thing about qualifying through the trial is when you tick it off, it is such a cathartic moment. And it can take a long time, but you just got to keep giving it a crack.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk a little bit, before we go into your future goals and things like that, I just want to take a step back and talk about your journey with Molokai and, 3-time winner, back to back to back. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, of course. So when I was growing up, my strengths as an athlete were endurance. I did a lot of cross country, and those are the races I'd go better in when it came to running. And board paddling was the thing that I improved the most in, and I think is my biggest strength now, even still. And the other part was skills, because I love to surf a lot. I spent a lot of time going in and out through surf. I got quite good on the skill aspect. And when I first heard about Molokai, it sounded to me like 6 hours of downwind paddling. So it was the endurance, it was the board paddling, and it was the skill aspect. It sounded like perfect fun. And that was pretty naive, because catching runners starts to lose its fun after about, I'd say, 3 to 4 hours of doing it at max pace. But I also, I was introduced to it by Lizzie doing it, and also by watching that documentary Decade of Dominance with Jamie Mitchell. So he was a big wave surfer that is sponsored by Quicksilver, and did that race 10 years and won it. I think it was all in a row, 10 in a row, and is the best to ever do it. And his documentary just made it seem like such a massive feat to complete. Like, it was just a massive feat to complete the race, and just be a part of it would be so special. And so it was definitely a bucket list item. I think I was about 16, and I was like, I want to be the youngest person to do the race. And then that school didn't quite allow that opportunity. And then every other year I'd always focus on the trials, because I was like, I can't really focus on doing this endurance event in the off season until I make it through a trial, because that's my number one goal still. I'm still training as an Iron person. And I started to realise, look, if I want to do it, I've just got to do it. And turned out the training for the Molokai actually set me up quite well for the trials. Just by getting that base fitness and having something different to train for, mix up my season. And yeah, I'd seen how tough of a race was firsthand from seeing my friend Lizzie do it so many times. Her and Harriet always battled it out, two incredible board paddlers. And it still amazes me that Lizzie hasn't won one, because I've considered her the best board paddler in the world since I was about 16. Just by the way the way I watch her paddle in the flat, I've just never seen anyone else do that. Even now, if I'm not fresh, she'll be going head to head with me. The thing I've got her in is the board start, but in the paddle part, she just can turn over and doesn't stop. It's been incredible.
Wow.
And I'd seen her come second 3 or 4 times, and one of them she was leading the whole way until the final bit where you turn into the bay and go into a headwind, and she got overtaken by Harriet and lost by a minute, which I think that year was nearly a 6-hour race. It was just absolutely gutting. Nevertheless, I still wanted to give it a crack, and I went to Mick DeBetter, who's the other goat of Molokai paddling. He did the first ever Molokai to Oahu on a board and won. And at that time, he'd done every single one since. So I think he did 25 years in a row of doing Molokai. Wow. And I got my program from him. He was really helpful in coaching and mentoring me through that. Answered the millions of questions that myself and my dad would come to him with, because Dad was helping me along the way a lot as well. And went over in the first year. I was racing Stewie McLaughlin, who's since the era of, he's the only person in like the modern era of board paddling that's won multiple Aussies in a row, apart from Zach. And he won 4 Aussies in total. And even Bevy, who's one of the more dominant board paddlers, I think he might have only won 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Board racing's so hard to win, and he's been so dominant. And he'd retired from the shorter stuff mostly, but Molokai he'd done a lot of times on the stock board. So there's a couple main categories. The stock board, which is a 12-foot board, everyone's on the same board. And then the unlimited category, where you can basically have as big a board as you want. It has a rudder that you control with your feet. And he'd won the stock 3 or 4 times and had set the world record for that, but wanted to go up into the unlimited. In my opinion, the unlimited is the premier event. It's just who can get over the fastest using their arms, no matter what the craft. And he wanted to basically just complete the trifecta of winning all the Aussies, winning the stock Molokai, winning the unlimited Molokai. And in that first year, I'd spent a lot of my training really preparing my body to finish the race, because I didn't know what I was in for. And I knew I was a pretty good board paddler. Maybe if things went well, I could do a little bit of a race with him, but I wasn't confident enough in my ability to hang on for 6 hours, if required, to actually go in and going, yeah, I'm going to race Stewie. And in that first year, Stewie had a few technical issues, which meant he had to change to a stock board. And it was me and Jackson Maynard who were going head to head. Another funny full circle moment, because my first ever, in my breakout iron event at the Shannon X team, I ended up going head to head on the way in on the ski in that huge surf against Jackson Maynard and Matt Poole, and I came away third. Jackson won. And when I bought my unlimited Molokai boards, I bought Matt Poole's old boards. So he was selling 2, one in Australia, one in Hawaii. I raced on Matt Poole's board, trained on his other board in Australia. And then when I went over there, after Stewie had dropped out, it was me and Jackson Maynard going head to head. So it was that same crew, all involved in this other sport on the other side of the world. And we were head to head for about 3.5 hours. It's crazy because it's such a big space of water you're racing in. You see people for about the first 40 minutes, maybe an hour, and then all of a sudden I saw no one for 2 hours, and I was going, I reckon I've got a lead here. And then Jackson Maynard just comes out from the north, storming down a runner, like going, woo! And by that time, everyone was getting a bit tired. And it kind of messed with me mentally. I was going, this guy's having fun still. I'm starting to get in a bit of pain. But I love the endurance stuff and managed to pull away and win that one. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
And then, yeah, the next couple of years, each time I trained for it, it was a little bit different. Next year, I was like, okay, I'm going to get Stewie. Like, screw that old man. I want to beat him. We chat a lot of nonsense to each other during the training. He's quite secretive and quiet, but he's about to race when he starts messaging me on Instagram, replying to all my stories. So yeah, we had a really good battle that second year. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was really, really strong in my mindset going into that race. And I held the attitude of, look, you can't think about where you are. You can't race Stewie. You just got to focus on the bump and try and have a bit of joy in what you're doing. Again, all of my iron races I've gone best in, the one that I was having the most fun because it was in surf. And we were head to head. He was 400 meters south of me, but you could see the boat for 4 hours, just battling each other out, battling it out. He'd get a 50 meter lead. I'd come back. I'd get a 50 meter lead, and then just that last hour, I started to pull away, and we were moving really fast because even though I was trying to focus on myself, you still are pushing at a rate where you think you're comfortable and trying to race the person if you can see them. So I was like, I've got to at least try and stay with him. And we were both pushing the pace really hard. And that race comes down to who can hang on the best. And I managed to hang on the best, but we set in a pretty incredible time. I think I got the second fastest crossing of all time. And Mick Better came in, and Cam Guthrie as well, another awesome paddler. They came in and said that it was one of the harder conditions they've raced in. And they were pretty sure that like if the conditions had been right, that would have been probably the fastest crossing ever.
Wow.
But that's something I can speak to. And Bevy's got the fastest crossing ever. You can't take that away from him. He did that pretty much on his own as well. So things might have been different if he had people racing against. The record's such a fickle thing. You can't really think about it because it's so conditions dependent. But we set a pretty high standard of the race that year, and it broke us both. But I was very grateful that I could beat someone of such talent like Stewie. And then the third year was different again because Stewie got injured that year, didn't do it, and I had to race against Jack Bark, who's the son of Joe Bark, who makes all of the Unlimited prone boards, and a couple of other really incredible names in board paddling. And sorry, I've got a long story I could tell here as well, but I'm taking
keep going. It's good.
So I went into that one going, this is another challenging year. I'm racing against people I haven't raced against before. There was a couple guys as well who'd, the name's blanking me at the moment, it's really annoying me. But he had always come second to Stewie in the stock and had won the year that Stewie went up and did Unlimited, had won his first stock title.
Lockie Lansdowne.
Lockie Lansdowne, thank you. It's driving me nuts.
He's from Noosa.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't see that. Yeah, he's he came up to Unlimited as well, and those two guys were people I hadn't raced against, so I didn't know how to race against them. And they were both incredible board paddlers. Jack had the record for Catalina, which is the other most prestigious endurance paddleboard race. And that one's done in the flat pretty much, so that's a whole other ball game of mental challenge.
Yeah.
And so I had to just try and train to be at my best and not train to cover my weaknesses against Stewie, which is a different attitude. And I went off in the training for that year. To cut a long story short, I was kind of thinking it might be my last time doing it, because I love the race, and it's such a special thing to be a part of, and it's such a cool thing to do, such a challenge, but it takes up a good portion of your year. You lose your whole off season. I only had 2 weeks off after Aussies for the last 3 years because I just had to get straight back into work to get prepared for Molokai. And so I wanted to try and give myself a break and go for some other goals, maybe like the gold, or just putting my head down and just putting all my effort into the trial if I hadn't made it last year. And so in the back of my head I was going, this might be my last one, and I had in the back of my head as well that I think I'm one of the better people at doing this endurance board racing. So we started going off the start, and once we got into the wind, I looked at a couple of splits, and I was like, that's on record pace. Like we're going a right pace, and I saw those splits, and I thought I could hold it, but I had to go hard. I had to go really hard to hold that pace. And the silly thing about Molokai is, as I said, you don't get to dictate the speed. That's co-conditions dependent, and it changes 100 times across the channel. Usually you start off a bit faster. The first year I did it, we were well below record pace, and then hit a massive current for the last 2 hours, and that's where I pulled away. And this year I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go really hard. And across the first 3 hours, I pulled away to a 20-minute lead, which is quite a long way. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool thing to do against board paddlers that were that good, but it was also really foolish because I had record in my head going, I'm going to try and go for it. And the conditions changed to, in my opinion, worse than that first year, and I just could not move against this current, and completely blew up, and basically limped my way home. I managed to win by like 22 minutes or something, which I'm really proud of, because that's also I think the largest winning margin. But it was not a clever race, and I was lucky that I had no one that tried to set the pace with me, because I think I would have been beaten based on immature racing styles. Like I'd ignored advice from Mick, from Jamie Mitchell, all about how you don't get to decide what the outcome is going to be of the race. You just got to pace yourself and then be ready to go for it that last 2 hours when everyone's dying. And I limped home. I had a huge headache. I had to turn my watch away from myself because I couldn't look at the splits because the time was going so slowly. And just getting there and finishing that one, was one of them. It was one of the more painful experiences I had in the race, and it knocked me around for a couple of days. Actually, I just had a huge headache that wouldn't go away, and I put a pretty big toll on my body. But it was a lesson, and it was something that I can say I've had a crack at, which was just absolutely going for it and seeing what happened. I messed around and found out. But yeah, I still got to get my third title, and I was really grateful for that. And thankfully, through auto qualifying this year, I have decided that I am going to go back again. So I'm very keen for that.
Awesome. And does that mean if you go win again, are you going to chase 5 in a row?
That's what everyone said. Everyone was like, you've either got to wrap it up at 3 or go for 5.
Yeah.
I think you got to go for 4 before you can go for 5.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who's doing the race. I'd love it if Bevy came and did it. I'd love to have a race against him.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. How good would it be to race Bevy across the Channel of Bones?
I'd love to. I've been lucky enough to have some incredible battles with him in shorter course racing, even in like mid-length racing. We had WA Race Week where he won last year, and we had a longer event where I won this year, but then in the shorter event we battled and I made a few mistakes and he got the win again. We've had lots of short course races together, even in irons where we're just going head to head in the board last. For example, on the weekend, the one where I got third, I was leading out on the way out to sea on the board, and was like, I reckon I've got him here, and he just does what Bevy does and works to the beach better than anyone. Yeah. And getting to do that across a 5-hour channel against who I consider the best board paddle over the last 10 years would be really cool. I'd like to see where I benchmark myself against him as well. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have heard someone say that he said, this is rumours, he'd only come back if the record was broken. So maybe if we get really favourable conditions and I can surf my way to Molokai instead of to Oahu instead of paddle, and get a record, then he might come back for a 5th.
Wow. That'd be pretty cool if
Yeah,
you set a record this year and then you're going for your fifth title in a row and Bevy comes back for it.
yeah, that would be pretty special. But yeah, he'd be one of the other ones I'd most want to beat. Um, I've heard a rumor that Stewie might be coming back. He's been on and off injury, and I know him training for that race also takes a big toll on his family because he is the biggest workhorse there is and just puts in hours and hours and drains his body in. And so if he comes back, he wants to make sure he gives it 100%, but it's also he has to get the blessing of his family because it's hard work working around his training.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I've also tried to, until I find out who I'm racing against, I'm trying to have a little bit more of a relaxed approach and enjoy it because the training for it is very unpleasant a lot of the time. As you get into the really cold months and the trade winds start turning west, which means you get no bumps to train in, and you're just doing long hours on your own, sometimes in the dark, just cold. It's not that fun, but I'm having a think about if I can try and spend a little bit more time in Hawaii this year, do some of my training block over there. That would make it really fun, and maybe just train a little bit more to get the body ready to do it. I know my body can get through the 5 hours, and I know I can make it perform if I need to, but maybe in my training just put a little bit less focus on just the board aspect and try and train around the goal a little bit more as well. Because I'm hoping that's going to be in the series format again next year, and that's another event where I think I could go really well if I got to put the work in.
Wow. Now, I know you're a numbers guy, and I wanted to ask this, with all your training for Molokai, what is the top speed that you hit?
Top speed that I hit? I don't know. I need to get the calculator out to change it into kilometres an hour. But in last year, when I got the new board off Joe, the first paddle I had on it, I hit the fastest ever kilometre split that I had on a board. And I think it was a 3:45.
Far out.
Which is pretty nuts.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so much fun when it's like that. And the funny thing is about it, some days you'll go out there and go, I just had the best run. I must have gone so fast. And you'll get a pretty slow time because when the current's going against you, it sits the runners up a little bit more and you kind of surf it a bit more. Whereas sometimes you'll be like, I feel like I was working against it that whole time. I was having to chase onto the runners, and if I got one, like I'd catch it for a bit, but then I had to chase onto the next one. It was hard work. And that was what it was like when I had that split, because the current's going with you a little bit and it just basically accelerates the wave. So if you can get onto it, you're going to be going at a crazy speed. And I came out of that one going, that sucked. It was really backwashy and it just felt like I wasn't surfing very well. And I looked at my watch after, I was like, ooh, I guess I was wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about your plans for Molokai this year. Let's talk about your goals for the rest of the season and on the future in surf and paddleboarding. Let's hear it, if you want to share.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to share. I want to win an Aussie board. I kind of figured out the other day that despite considering myself a board paddler and Ironman, like I'm a board paddler, a good board paddler that trains for irons and goes well in irons. But I think of myself as board being my biggest strength, and I've also considered myself one of the best. I'm comfortable saying I've considered myself the best board paddler around really the last 3 or 4 years. However, I've had far better results in irons than I have in board, which I think half is a reflection of just how hard it is to win board races. There's so many. It's similar to irons. There's so many good guys. There's like you go into a heat for the board now, and I'm going into a racing going, I want to win this weekend, and I go into the heat of the thing, I'm going, I might not make it through this heat. And then you get to the finals and a couple of favourites to win might not be there, and you'll still have 10 guys that could win on their day. And because it's quite a short race, there's no opportunities for mistakes. There's waves that can bring a whole field together. One of my weaknesses is I've gone from probably one of the worst sprinters up the beach to a mid-level sprint up the beach. So sometimes I can beat people, but still a lot of the time I'm getting beaten up the beach. But especially over the last 3 years, over the last 3 years, I've come into the Aussies board going, I want to win. The first year at Perth, Tex just did what I've never seen anyone do really, which is lead start to finish in the flat and break away from the pack. He'd been dominant all week, and I'm very, very confident. I think everyone on the beach that weekend was confident saying he was the best board paddler there that weekend. That being said, my goal for that final was make sure I can stay on his wash off the start, because he had so much faster start than me. And I was like, if I can stay on his wash off the start, then I could give him a crack at the end, because I know I come home well. And I was put 2 people away from him on the line, went off the start, got around the guy that was next to me and got on his wash. And I was like, sweet, I've nailed my start race. I'll just be able to work my way through. Because normally in a board race, especially in the men's, everyone empties the tank off the start to try and get good water. And then the pace usually settles a bit while people recover and then go hard into the can. So we'd all settled. I sat back on the wash, comfortable to recover. And then all of a sudden, Harry Stone just decided to come in with his own unique game plan and just absolutely went for it on my outside. And I wasn't ready for it. And he did 25 strokes where he went past me, saw the wash opportunity for Tex, came across me, and I was fighting him, but I was on the timing where I was sitting on, kind of bounce forward and back, kind of bouncing back on the wash as he came across me. And I got clipped by his lay-down style leg going a bit wide. He actually hit me in the head and hit my cap in front of my eyes. So there's a video where I'm like this in the middle of the board fighting with Aussies. And I got knocked off the wash. I was in the back of the pack, and in flat water like that, the second you're not in clean water, when it's a bit turbulent, there's nothing you can do. And I think I got 15th. It just showed the difference in board pattern. Like I wanted to win, and I got 15th. And the field is so close, and Tex was just so dominant that day. But I was really, really angry with myself for making that mistake. The year after that, as I talked about before, I led it around. I was pretty gutted, but I was like, it happens, you've got to put yourself in the right position. And then last year was one of the best seasons I've had, and also had 3 of the most challenging moments for me, because I'll take a little bit of a detour. In the World Ocean Series, I'd also wanted to win a board title overall series, because I feel like I'm really good at leading races, and then just things keep happening, or I keep making mistakes within the last 20% of the race. And instead of going from first to maybe a third and still ending up with a podium, I just kept leading races and ending up 10th, 12th, and just going, what am I doing? Like, how is this happening? But I thought that would be averaged out in a series if I just kept getting consistent results, which I was. And I went into the last day of the World Ocean Series last year, coming 3rd in the iron overall, leading the MVP and leading the board. And I got knocked out in round 1 of every single thing except the swim. And then in the swim final came dead last. And I ended up getting 4th in the iron, so I still started to get 4th, but lost my 3rd place position. I ended up getting 2nd in the board to Connor, who had to do a pretty heroic paddle on the last day and get a podium to beat me. So got 2nd in that, and then also ended up losing the MVP by like 30 points or something, which essentially is 1 position in any of the races across the whole year. And once that happens, you start reflecting on every single opportunity you had to get 1 more position. And that was that same year that I'd had the really tough day in the trial. And I'd managed to bounce back after one of those days going, what is my lesson? And then just have essentially the worst day that I could have imagined in the sport. So I was gutted from that. And then, again, it just fired me up again. I managed to put some work in the background with Emma Gleeson, has helped me in coaching my mindset a little bit around racing. And coming to Aussies and turn those setbacks into motivation to perform. And I thought in that Aussie board final, I executed what I thought was the perfect race. And the year before, it was actually Zach that came from a little bit, incredible board paddler, that had made a mistake at the start, and Aboriginal came from a little bit back and managed to win against Odin in a run up the beach. And then this year, the next year at Kira, when I executed what I thought was a perfect board race, Odin led off the beach and I let him go, just kept myself on the inside in a comfortable position, letting him set the pace and keeping myself a little bit fresh. That being said, fresh keeping up with the guy setting the pace in the Aussie board final is still pretty hard, but it was just that little 1% extra rest that I got. Came around the can, took the lead, managed to set like a substantial lead by board standards coming into the break zone. work onto a front wave with Odin, and all of a sudden Zach, who again fell off his board at the start, worked his way onto the runner just behind us, but in the gutter, caught up to our wave, and I didn't even see him. I didn't even know he was there. And I got up, ran up the beach, beat Odin up the beach. I was like, I've won this. And then just as I crossed the line, I hear this, yeah! And Zach got me. And yeah, Zach, again, incredible racer. That year he had one of the best Aussies I've ever seen in the men's, where he just won every single race. I think his iron was the only disappointment for him. He just kept winning races. The board rescue, the tackle, and the board relay. Felt like he kept taking the races that I really wanted to win. I really wanted to win the board relay, the taplin, and the mixed taplin and the board, and he got all of those. And yeah, congratulations to Zach. He just knows how to win races. He's got that special ability to perform when it matters. But I, again, came out of that going, I don't think I would have changed anything about the way I did that race. And I'm ready to win a board title. I'm going to put everything I can into it. And that is a silly thing to do in our sport because it's not always in our control. But this year I just want to come out of Aussies confident that I gave it my best crack. And hopefully it works out for me.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, your side journey you've got going at the moment, your side project, Surf Fantasy. I've been loving it. It's a lot of fun. How did the idea start and what's your plans for the future for it? Because it is an awesome thing that you've done.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a fun yet challenging project. I don't think we can credit any one person for the idea. I think it had always been something thrown around in conversation at the surf carnivals going, just in the tent, you'd chat nonsense about who you thought was going to win, and if you were right, then you'd rub it into the rest of the tent. In my opinion, it's the perfect sport in the world to gamble on. You've got young, fit athletes at the beach performing in a sport that has every type of athleticism you need, where it's speed, power, endurance, skills, transitions, like even hypoxia when you're having to hold your breath for a body wave. And there's an element of randomness. So it makes it so exciting. And when you're really invested in who you want to perform well, that's when you see the excitement, because all of a sudden you'll see what's happening to individuals in the race instead of just watching it from the back and going, okay, well, this person's leading and then now this person's leading. That's a bit tough to follow. But when you have investment in athletes, it's in my opinion the most exciting sport there is. That's why I do it. And in terms of who got the idea to be executed, my dad came forward and was like to me, Charlie, you have a background in computer science and all of that stuff. Like, do you reckon we could make this? And I was like, yep, we could make it for sure. And I spoke to my other mate, Archie. Actually, Archie's the guy who broke my wrist before under 14 Aussies. So he's the third partner in Surf Fantasy. We're still friends. He did software engineering, software dev at uni as well. So that's far more practical in things like website building or integrating front-end interfaces with back-end frameworks is what I was looking for. And I went to him, I reckon we can do this. I reckon it wouldn't take us that long. And he goes, yeah, we did this in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, it's so easy. We'll spit it out really quickly. So Dad, I'd credit Dad with being the ideas man. And then we got started. We had a few Zoom calls because he's moving around a lot and I'm not living at home. And it was pretty funny having those real business-oriented Zoom calls with one of your best mates and your dad, because we're all pretending to be serious and then it feels a bit silly. And we were really, really wrong in how long it was going to take us. It took us so much work and a long time to get kind of a usable baseline. And one of Dad's real strengths is being very ambitious in what he wants and just coming forward with more and more ideas before we've actually finished the previous task. And that was what has led to what it is, a pretty well-rounded website now and pretty powerful. And I think hopefully it's been very convenient for everyone outside of just using the game part of it. But he also is he runs really far ahead and kind of leaves a trail of chaos in the background at the same time. So at the start, we had to build a database structure, which basically how we store all the information for the website and how it interacts with each other. And myself and Archie were really, really careful in how we planned that. And Dad had already started to use a little bit of AI to just build the front end that he wanted. And in doing that, he was getting so frustrated, going like, why doesn't this work? I've told it to do this. And you look in the back end, and the back end just didn't make sense. And in my education, like I've just been taught to basically build from the start correctly and build up so that you know what you've built, and then when you want to fix something that's not working or make an adjustment, you know how to do that. And Dad would just go forward to the next thing he wanted to get completed, and we'd have to kind of make it so that he could add these adjustments in the future. And so we put all this work into creating this really neat database, and basically had to put a leash on Dad for a little while. And Dad was in the background having all these ideas and putting in massive amounts of time. Like in terms of time into it, Dad just put tenfold on myself and Archie, but the work myself and Archie had to be done correctly for the whole thing to work. And once we finally got that database freed up, Dad has the time, like Archie's working full time, I'm working part-time, training full time, and trying to do this whenever I can. But Dad had the opportunity to put in those long hours of getting the things like the new athlete rank, which goes off average result instead of points, which is just a new way to look at who's performing well based on consistency. The event schedule I actually think is the best part of the website, because you can go in and see in one location all of the events for the whole year. You can see, you can watch the live stream for those events just straight into the website. You can learn about athletes from that place. You can look at the forecasts for the conditions for that event. Like you got to go in and check it out. There's so much stuff you can see. And yeah, Dad had built all that, and he's also managed to build like profiles in the background. And Archie and I would kind of come in and help when there was things that needed to be fixed, and Dad would create all these incredible ideas. Like it was not all him. Like we still had brainstorms where Archie would come up with incredible things. I'll credit myself with a couple of cool functions in the site. But we actually had a look the other day at, we took the leash off Dad essentially, and he built this incredible thing. And we went back and had a look the other day at the database, and our main center of the database is still there. That looks really pretty and is very functional. But there's one little, like think of like a network of tables with lines connecting them, and then there's one table with one line coming off of it to another table, and then it's just chaos. And it's what happened when we let Dad off the leash. And it's one of those things where the core functionality of this website is protected. All of these extra things work. We don't know how it works, but it works. And hopefully there's no problems with it, because it'll be hard to fix. But it was just a really funny example of how the different styles of problem solving were being executed. Yeah, we're really proud of what we've built, and we're glad people are enjoying it. I think we've still yet to make a little bit of traction with people. Like one of the best things we've implemented is Live Heats has been very generous to let us use their data and have a little bit of control with it. And what Dad's idea was, we basically put a bit of the Live Heats website in our website, so they get all of the traffic. But what we've done is created toggles so that you can go to different parts of the website really quickly. So instead of, for an event, having to go into World Ocean Series and then go find the event and then go find, this is the other problem, event means two things. Go find the carnival and then go find the discipline and then go check your round and then check your heat. You can just go onto our website and you can click Iron person, male, under 17, and you'll see the most up-to-date round draws, and it just takes 5 seconds to find your draws, which is really, really helpful. So yeah, we're constantly developing. We're also constantly fixing. Every single round this year, there's been something in the background that hasn't worked perfectly, and we just we get it fixed. That being said, there's also a lot of other things we want to try and work on. So a lot of feedback we've had is that people want an app, and I've never built an app, so I needed to do a lot of research and understanding how feasible that is. Archie said it is a challenge because all of a sudden you have to pay to have it listed for people to download, and it is complex to keep going because now you have to keep updating it with changes in software and stuff like that. But we're definitely looking into it because it won't get used if it's not a convenient thing to use.
Yeah.
But one of the other unfortunate things is the best version of the website is on a computer. We've made it work so it's on a phone, but we need to make it better on a phone. And we're also keen at the end of Aussies, after the first year wraps up, just to send out feedback, because we're hoping, because it's a relatively small sport still, that we're all on the same page trying to grow it and trying to create a product that's fun for everyone and aligns with our initial goal of building that audience for the sport. So we want to get as much feedback as we can on ways to improve it, and make it better for everyone.
Yeah, it is such a cool thing. I love it. I got a bit stiffed up this weekend on it.
Yeah,
But it's so cool.
Sunday with my Saturday racing.
I think my favourite thing of it though is how you guys implemented the tick and the X, so you
Yeah.
can see who's racing without having to go check live heats. That's probably one of the coolest things. Just
Yeah,
something.
that is the incredible work of Archie.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the more challenging things to do, and that's why it took so long. This is where we thought the whole website would take us 2 weeks, and that took us like 2 months in itself. Because the way to do that, we've created a program that essentially acts like a human in opening a website, having looking at it, and extracting the data, and we run that after every event to get the results, essentially. But to see who's entered, that's constantly changing. So you have to have something that's kind of constantly having a look, but not too much, because otherwise it makes a really, really slow website. So what he essentially did was bought a computer that's sitting in a data warehouse somewhere that is always running, and we essentially own. And we just say, we want it to check every 20 minutes and run this program to see who's entered. And
Wow.
that's been, really powerful now that it works. But then a lot of issues come with that, because you have like multiple athletes, you have inconsistent naming conventions across events, and Archie's just a whiz at it. He's best in the world, in my opinion, at doing that stuff. So he's made it far more accessible to use by seeing it, because there was so much frustration from people picking athletes that just wouldn't turn up to the carnival. We've still got the issue of athletes will make the Iron final and all of a sudden decide they don't want to do the swim, but I think that's just a consequence of the way that it's structured.
And now I saw that you're doing, is it bonus points for Aussies? What's how the pointing system works there?
Yeah, we're one of the other tricky things about fantasy is that you have people that are very passionate at the start going, I'm going to win this season, and then they have 2 rounds where they go pretty poorly and they think they're out of it. And as a result of that, the numbers have declined. At our peak, we had 1,800 teams picked, which is pretty incredible. Like, massively overshot our goal, which I think was like 500 by the end of the season at the start. But that thing is, it's actually decreased significantly since then. So to try and keep people engaged, most of our reward basis and the prizes are round based. So it's really fun to just organize with your mates, going, hey, let's just put some consequence on this round. For example, my family and the Wellborns, like Lizzie's family, both have Christmas with each other every year, and we decided on the Shannon weekend to put a bet on that whoever loses out of both of our families has to do all the dishes from Christmas Day, which is a pretty significant task when you have 6 athletes there all eating quite a substantial amount. And that has just been so much fun, because all of a sudden on the weekend I'd picked myself, so I was doubly angry when I didn't make it through, but I picked Jackson and I'd be like, Jackson, if I don't win, you better freaking win.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the dishes.
Yeah.
And it just creates chatter around the sport. And that was a perfect example of our goal, because what it did is it got the group of people that are all friends within our families who already have so much involvement in the sport and passion but it also looped in my brother and sister, which barely even watch when I'm racing. All of a sudden, we're very invested, and even like Zoe, well, one Lizzie's younger sister's partner, who's never had a history in the sport, all of a sudden watching, and it just showed that what we built was doing its job essentially.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun, and yeah,
Sorry, I
I
just
love it.
realised I didn't ask the question. Double points for Aussies.
Oh yeah, yeah, double points.
Well, we're not sure. We're going to have a bonus because, in our opinion, Aussies is the most important one of the year
Yeah.
that everyone shows up for and trying to peak for. And we also are being careful. We haven't decided on how the bonus points are going to work because we have Emily Holyman who's currently leading by a long margin, and we don't want her to have one bad round and be punished for that and lose her overall series if she doesn't deserve it. If she has a bad round, like a really bad round, that's not our fault. But we also want to give some people some incentive to go, hey, I can still catch up in whether it be in the overall leaderboard or just in a league with a group of their mates.
Yeah, it's really good. I love it, and I need some bonus points hopefully for Aussies.
Yeah, well, any suggestions we'll take on board.
Yeah. Now, Charlie, is there anything that I've missed that you want to talk about?
I can talk about clubbies all day. I wouldn't say I'm chatty until we start chatting about clubbies. Um, not really. Nothing really on theme. Like, there's so much good going on with the sport at the moment, and it feels like all we ever talk about is the bad, and that's because we're also passionate about growing it, and there are definite areas that need to be fixed. But I think taking a little bit more time to go, hey, like, we're really grateful for the sport that you guys are putting on at the moment as is. You've, like, Sean Partners, World Ocean Series, the Iron Series, Surf Life Saving Australia, are giving us a foundation to actually do the sport that we love. And they have grown it recently, and we've got opportunities to go win a pretty good amount of money. It's not setting yourself up for life money that we'd all want, but every sport in the world wants that. We've got to work hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just taking that time to be a little bit grateful and state how good the sport is before we start being critical, and then what that'll do is create a little bit more positive atmosphere around it, so that people overhearing conversations like this aren't hearing the people in the sport saying how bad it is all the time.
Yeah.
And also it might incentivize the people that have the power to make real changes to go, hey, these guys aren't just whinging about everything I do. They are very grateful, and this is the ideas that a lot of ideas that are very good that should be implemented. My biggest opinion at the moment, the biggest room for opportunity for improvement is one, the promotion around events. I see a lot on Instagram, but that's because my Instagram's tailored to be 100% clubbies, maybe 99% clubbies, 1% surfing, and but that only works so well. I think we've got to have a look at what one has worked a little bit in the past, but also have a look at what other sports are doing to bring people in. Whether that be sending athletes to schools, like, there's not many people that are working full time around our sport because it's such a sport that demands so much time commitment just to train for. So what that means is, whilst we're all really, really busy, sometimes that busyness might be just focusing on recovery, which we can make a day where we can go out to 3 or 4 schools in the lead up to an Iron Series event in Miami and go, hey, like, rock up with some footage of us getting absolutely pumped on skis and racing each other to some sprint finishes, and then walk out on stage carrying a ski and stand it up. Because if you hold a ski, you think it's big, you stand it up, it looks seriously big, and you go, yeah, that's how big those waves we were racing in.
Yeah.
And just show some kids to what we do, and give a bit more of a personal relationship. Maybe get them to go home and tell their parents that they want to watch this racing this weekend. That was one thing. I think the biggest impact on sport that I've seen recently is the Drive to Survive show, and a lot of other sports have had success out of very similar shows. And I know Sean Partners did put a lot of work in to create a similar show. I can't remember what it was called, which is bad for me, but they did like a 6-part series following athletes and clubs around the World Ocean Series. But unfortunately, in my opinion, what was missed in that show is the completely independent perspective of the makers. So if you watch something like Drive to Survive, they spend most of their time talking. Sorry, first of all, it's not funded by a sponsor of any of the one teams. And second of all, they spend most of their time talking to coaches or team managers about the athletes and then getting a little bit of conversation time with the athletes, because in a world with so much digital media, you don't have the opportunity anymore to say one thing in passing that's very controversial and get away with it. All of a sudden that becomes your reputation. You've got to be really careful. So I'm not saying we're being dishonest, but we're not being 100% transparent when we're talking about things. And I can say, this is very controversial for me to say, I don't want everyone to win.
Yeah.
There are people that I don't want to win. There are people that I really want to beat, but I'm limited in what I'm able to say publicly because I want to speak in a way that reflects my character. Whereas I'm sure if you got my coaches or some managers of clubs and stuff, they'd probably tell you how it is a little bit more about what's going on and get some of that drama. Rivalries are really frustrating when you're in the sport because you feel like, why can people possibly act like this? But God, they're exciting from an external perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Think about, if I think of some of the biggest rivalries lately, Lucy and Lana have both done some incredible things in the sport. There's also been a few examples of behaviour that I thought was controversial and would have upset me if it had been done to me. And it made it really exciting when whichever side you're on, watching those two go head to head. The other big one was in the Taplins last year at Aussies. Newport was the only club that actually really gave it a real crack against Northcliffe. And yeah, it's just a powerhouse. And we had a lot of background lore that went into the stories of those last ski legs against, it was Trimmy and Max versus Morris. And it was really dramatic, and Morris annoyed a lot of people, but also raced really, really well. And a lot of people, everyone went off the beach talking about that race, whether it was positive, whether it was negative. Even if it was something controversial, it made people think about the sport. And I think if you got more people talking about that publicly and sharing stories and allowing people to know the athletes, that would give them investment to watch. And once people are watching, that we've got the best sport to show them. Everyone who watched, I had a whole lot of my mates that were in share houses up and down the coast because they're on placement or something, and they'd forced their whole house to watch when I was racing. And the Maruba round, especially, the coverage was excellent, and I had some good results. And my mates would say, all of my roommates said that, like, how have we never watched this sport? It's so exciting. And that leads me on to my next point, is that I think the other biggest thing that needs to be fixed is the coverage. And it is getting better every year, but it still just sometimes makes me pull my hair out. It's a really challenging sport to cover, and it's constrained by budget. But we just need to somehow get someone in front of all those screens with a director, telling them what needs to be seen to make this race interesting. And sometimes that is following what's happening with the leader. I'm pretty confident in saying it's almost never what's happening in the transition run of an iron.
Yeah.
And it's really rare that you're going to capture the most exciting parts of the sport in a close-up shot. We just need to get more coverage of what's happening going in through the break, going out through the break, in wide shots that make the surf look challenging, like as challenging as it is. Focus on stuff that's happening around cans. They've gotten better this year with having the split screen. We should almost have a split screen the entire time that racing is going on. Because sometimes as a breakaway leader, excellent part of the sport, one of the most boring things to watch on TV, in my opinion, because you still want to see what's happening with that leader, but there's no narrative to the race if you can't see what people are doing to try and catch that leader. And so I think, that's a massive opportunity for the sport if we can get that right and transfer what's happening on the race day through to a screen. That would be reflected really well in viewership, I hope.
Yeah, that's some really cool points. On that, do you think how they did it back in the day with the GoPros on board as well, do you reckon that's something cool that they could bring back?
The GoPros on boards are tough. I thought they were really good when you saw stuff around the cans. That being said, I remember some distinct races. It was Shannon Eckstein in a beach that I'm not going to remember the name of up the coast. Starts with a C? No, never mind. It doesn't matter. He was racing a really big surf, had a massive lead, took an absolute bomb on the ski, and they had this great footage from like in front of the wave, where the wave's standing up behind him, like looming, about to crash on him. And they switched to the GoPro angle, and the wave looks about 1 foot. And he just rolls in. And I'm going, well, now he just looks like a toddler that can't sit in their chair properly. Whereas if you had the front-on angle, it was the best Ironman of all time, getting smoked by a huge wave, which is exciting. So I don't reckon the GoPros are worth the effort. Very rarely you'll get a shot of someone getting hit in the face around the cans, or you'll be able to get like a shot from the side of when you're like paddling out on the board of people bashing arms next to each other behind you. I reckon my favourite shots in the sport are the drone shots where you have a wide shot at a kind of low angle looking at the waves coming in at you. So from the beach side, you can kind of see everyone. You can go, oh, ski launch there, that guy had to roll there. I love that one. The one I want to bring back is the IRB shots of people going down waves. I love looking at like Kai Hurst and Wesberg, like body surfing down a wave and like waving at the camera, giving us shackers, sticking their tongue out. And that was another one that I thought really demonstrated how hard it is to do that as well, because you see how fast they're moving on this wave. It's how explosive it is, how big the waves are. And then another idea that, the other shot I really liked was the swimmer in the water at the cans. You can see what's going on really well there, or just the more RB shots. The helicopter was great, but I think that's a bit ambitious at this point now that we have drones. But I also heard an idea recently about even like a camera mounted on a can. I think we should try it. I've got my doubts, but if it worked, some pretty interesting stuff happens around the can. There's also some pretty good dialogue around the can as well.
Yeah, wow, those are some fantastic ideas. Hopefully someone's listening and shares it and goes on. Yeah,
for sure. I think one thing this sport is not short of, though, is opinions. So we'll have to see.
Well, Charlie, that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's just been so fun talking to you and hearing your stories. Really excited to see how you go for the rest of the season and for the future. And yeah, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Wilbur. I've had a great time. It feels weird doing these podcasts, though, because I didn't get to hear anything about what you've been up to. Anything exciting coming from your end?
Not really. Just trying to get the podcast going a bit more, and hopefully I love clubbies and talking about that, and grow that in a way through the podcast. But I'd also love my rugby league, so trying to go down that avenue as well.
Yeah, see if you can keep doing both. Hopefully you can.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But love it.
I'm going to try and get the next thing in growing this podcast, I reckon, getting Keenan Competes on here.
Keenan Competes on?
He's my hero. I fanboyed him at the Marucci Carnival. I was a bit nervous, and I went up and said, "Hi, I'm Charlie. Love what you're doing." I reckon he's so funny, and he's doing exactly I think is required, which is creating a bit of personality and narrative around the sport.
Oh, it's great. It's funny as I'm pretty sure he won the Open Iron at Branch on the weekend at Sunshine Coast Branch. So
I Branch to win.
I think everyone was at the Shannon, but
I think that might have something to do with it. But I was actually thinking about that, wondering if he just wasn't going to Shannon and went to Branch, or if he was like, I have an idea for a video. I'm just not going to go to Branch and win everything.
Oh God.
It's so good. Anyway, all the best. I'll see you at Aussies, hopefully.
Yeah, see you on the beach, Charlie. Cheers.
Thank you.